Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to another episode of Mingles with Jingles. The new PC is here, it's an absolute monster. It processes video and renders video output around about 4 times faster than my previous PC, which when you're dealing with 4K video files, let me tell you, is a big improvement. It handles games extremely well too. At 4K resolution, I'm getting in excess of 100 frames per second out of World of Tanks, and around about 70 frames per second out of World of Warships at the same resolution. Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, as you can see here, looks absolutely stunning. Although if you're flying around areas with a lot of geometry, like for example Manhattan, at 4K resolution, the frame rate does start to chug a little. Although there are optimizations that you can make to improve the frame rate without sacrificing much in the way of visual splendor. I have been having one problem, however. You see, I can play everything in great resolution, great frame rate, and great eye candy. And I can output that video into a format suitable for YouTube around about 4 times faster than I was able to do previously, but it's the step in the middle. The games look amazing, but capturing the gameplay into video to drop into the editing software ready to be processed, something is going wrong. It's the actual video capture part that has been... things have been getting emotional. Let's just put it that way. Normally I use Shadowplay to record my gameplay. Those of you who don't know what Shadowplay is, it's capture software, even though it's mostly actually hardware because it takes advantage of Nvidia graphics cards to capture gameplay with very, very little system overhead. So it's exclusive to Nvidia graphics cards. It's what I've been using for years. I was using it on my 980 GTX, was using it on my 1080 Ti GTX, and I'm using it now. Except now it's been misbehaving itself, and I don't really know why. On this new PC, Shadowplay is just not working, and I really don't know why. The video capture that it grabs from the games that I'm recording is horribly distorted, the sound is messed up, and it's as if somebody's playing around with a speed timer, with the video randomly speeding up and slowing down and pausing and stopping, with audio pops and crackles. It's a horrible mess. Now, I've had this kind of issue before, very rarely, with Shadowplay, and it's something to do with whatever the current drivers are, just not liking whatever system configuration you have. You Google the symptoms and you find results from all kinds of people who are suffering exactly the same problems, and they never seem to get them resolved until the next bunch of drivers comes out, and then suddenly the problem goes away. Well, that's, it's encouraging, but it's no good to me right now. However, I did have another option. Bandicam. It's the software that I first started using to record all of my video years and years ago when I first started doing this. Bandicam is great. Unfortunately, for reasons known only to itself, Bandicam suddenly started developing problems on this new PC as well. Do you remember last week's Elite video where I was evacuating refugees, those of you who actually watched it, from a station that had suffered a terrorist attack? The video looked as if it was being rendered at 20 frames per second. It wasn't. It was captured at 60 frames per second, and it was rendered at 60 frames per second. But Bandicam couldn't get more than 20 frames per second out of the video that it was capturing from the gameplay. So when it was rendered out at 60 frames per second, it still looked like it was playing at 20 frames per second. And I'm not entirely sure why, but I suspect it's because when you're doing software video capture, 720p, it's fine. When you're doing software video capture at 1080p, it's fine. But when you make the jump up to 4K, you're suddenly asking your software to deal with and compress a whole bunch more data, and it doesn't seem to be able to keep up. Or at least I think that's what's happening. There's a whole bunch of video capture programs out there that proudly advertise themselves as being 4K video capable, and to be completely honest, I don't really think they entirely are. because Bandicam, which is supposed to be capable of doing 4K video capture, struggles. OBS Studio, which is normally used for streaming but can also be used for video capture, struggles. And I had some success with OBS Studio and Bandicam by capturing at 4K but outputting 2K video, which is still better than 1080p. But I didn't spend all this money on a 4K video capture system in order to capture video at 2K. I realise that we're really getting into first world problems here. I mean, 4K video capture at 60 frames per second compared to 2K video capture at 60 frames per second on YouTube, you'd be hard pressed to tell the difference visually. But I started looking at some hardware video capture options, and even a 4K video capture card that costs £150 can capture video at 4K resolutions but only at 30 frames per second. So am I just asking the software to do too much? I started to think that might be the case, and in preparation for recording this episode of Mingles with Jingles, I went back and used Shadowplay once again to capture a couple of minutes of World of Tanks footage just to show you exactly how bad and unusable it was. And it looks like this. I flashed up a random World of Tanks replay, hit the record button, and it looked great while I was playing, but I knew that the video output was going to be dodgy as all hell. And then I came to look at the video file and, well, this is it. This is in 2K resolution, by the way, 1440p. It seems fine. So I was waiting for the video to start screwing up, for it to start speeding up and slowing down, and for the audio to start distorting and popping and hissing and crackling, and it never happened. Suddenly Shadowplay is recording perfectly. Huh. Well, I didn't want to get too excited. So I did it again, bearing in mind that I'd, in an attempt to get it working acceptably previously, reduced Shadowplay's output down to 1440p, 2K resolution. So I went back into the GeForce Experience software and set Shadowplay up to both record and output at 2160p, 4K resolution. And it looked like this. So I'm sitting here waiting for this to start screwing up as well. And it isn't. And it's at 60 frames per second in 4K video resolution. So I have absolutely no idea what has been going on in the last couple of days since getting this new PC. Shadowplay didn't work. I couldn't capture 4K at 60 frames per second in Bandicam or OBS Studio. Do you remember the Elite video from last week? That was actually played at 4K and 60 FPS, but it only captured in 4K at 20 FPS. That's exactly the problems that I've been having. And just as I come to demonstrate what shitty video capture I've been getting, suddenly it all decides to start working. And I haven't touched anything, I haven't changed anything, suddenly it's behaving itself. And I have no idea why it wasn't behaving itself, and no idea why it now suddenly is. I'm just glad that it now suddenly is, because it doesn't mean I have to spend more money on a dedicated 4K video hardware capture card. Because there are all kinds of hardware video capture cards out there that advertise themselves as being able to capture 4K video, but what they don't tell you is that most of them can only handle 30 frames per second. If you want to capture 4K video in hardware at 60 frames per second, there's pretty much only the one card that can reliably do it, and that's the Elgato card that costs around about £350. And I've already spent a fortune on this PC, and hey, guess what? I don't need to spend any more, because suddenly, and I can't figure out why, but I'm not complaining, software capture is doing exactly the same thing for free, which is nice. I mean, I have no idea why Shadowplay just hasn't been working for the last 4 days, and then when I come to record this to show you how badly Shadowplay hasn't been working, suddenly it's working, and it's working fine. I'm not complaining though, because I've thrown enough money at this PC, although I'm probably going to be ending up spending some more money In the next couple of weeks, yep, that's right, the 3000 series RTX cards are out. Well, they're not out, but they will be in the next, well, week. Interestingly, just 2 days ago, PC Gamer announced that they'd found a manufacturer who was offering 3080 graphics cards for pre-order. I'd never heard of them. They were called B&H Photo, and they had exactly 2 different models of 3080, both from Asus. One for $780, one for $790. Within a day, they were no longer offering them for sale. Now, nobody knows at this point whether or not that was because Nvidia had slapped them for jumping the gun, or because they'd simply run out of pre-order inventory within a day. I suspect it's probably the latter. Because the 3000 series, I mean, you probably don't need me to tell you this, but they are very, very good graphics cards. And Nvidia haven't made them mind-bogglingly expensive, unlike the previous generation, the 2000 series, which was one of the reasons why the 2000 series was so, well, underwhelming. I mean, my old PC had a 1080 Ti Nvidia GTX graphics card, and I could do 4K gaming with that. If you look at the difference in computing power between a 1080 Ti and a 2080, you're only getting around about 15% more real-world performance in the 2080, which in no way justified the increased cost of the 2080 RTX. In fact, the only applications in which a 2080 RTX is going to seriously outperform a 1080 Ti are in games that feature ray tracing. That, rather than raw power, was what Nvidia were hoping were going to push the 2000 series of graphics card, but, well, that kind of relied on people developing games that took advantage of hardware ray tracing. And the list of games that take advantage of hardware ray tracing is depressingly short. There's Minecraft, but let's face it, you don't need a next-generation graphics card to run Minecraft in the first place. Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the new one, does support some ray tracing, but not enough to make a performance difference. It just makes the shadows look nicer. I think the only big title that's come out in the last 2 years, the length of time that the 2000 series graphics cards have been out, that actually supports all of the proprietary features on an RTX graphics card, is Remedy's Control. And it looks like this. Control is a seriously strange game. It's kind of like the X-Files on crack. And it looks nice. It looks very nice. Again, running it at 4K, maximum graphics settings, all the ray tracing effects turned on, DLSS, the other proprietary technology that came out with the 2000 series cards, which is some kind of... You know what, I don't know what it is, but it's turned on. I've never tried to, but I could have probably run this on the old PC with the 1080 Ti, although I never tried to. But it wouldn't have looked as nice as this. Well, maybe that's not strictly true. I mean, this is, again, running in 4K. And I'm pretty sure I'm getting 60 frames per second. I don't think I would have gotten 60 frames per second on the 1080 Ti. In fact, I'm pretty sure I would have been extremely lucky to get 30. Because everything that the RTX 2080 is doing in hardware, with the ray tracing and the surface effects and things like that, the 1080 Ti would have had to do just through brute force. And so the frame rate would definitely have suffered. This game, Control, is a funny example, because the minimum system spec for this game is an Intel Core i5-4690, 8GB of RAM, and it'll run on a GTX 780. Yeah, that's a very old graphics card, but these are the minimum system specifications. You'd be playing this in 720p, not 4K, not even 1080p, and it wouldn't look like this. But at the same time, if you do have the hardware, it looks like this. And yet, at the same time, I mean, it doesn't look bad, but it doesn't look next generation either. So with the 2000 series of graphics card, Nvidia gave us a new generation of GPUs that weren't actually that much more powerful than the preceding generation, but were a lot more expensive than the preceding generation. And you couldn't really realise the full potential of these new cards I mean, I say new cards, they're 2 years old now, unless they were running software that was specifically designed to take advantage of their proprietary features, like ray tracing. And the vast majority of software that's come out since these cards were released 2 years ago don't take advantage of these cards' proprietary features. So you've got very little extra performance for much, much more expensive cost. Nvidia kind of got the cart before the horse on this whole thing. They thought, if we build it, they will follow. And they built it, and hardly anybody bothered following. With the 3000 series, however, it's as if Nvidia have learnt their lesson. They've still got all the same proprietary technology on the RTX series of 2000 cards. You know, the ray tracing, the DLSS, and so on and so on and so on. But they're also very, very powerful cards. And they're not as expensive as the 2000 series of cards were when they were first released. I mean, they're not cheap. You're not going to get an awful lot of change out of $700 or $800 for a 3080 when they're released at the end of this week. But compare that to a 2080 Ti, which is still, in most cases, being sold for more than $1,000. What are the retailers going to have to do? Because people still have 2000 series cards in stock. They don't have many of them. I've been checking out the various different online retailers, and there are still, most of them have 2080 Ti's in stock, going at least $1,000. By this time next week, when the 3080 is out, for $700 to $800, offering twice the performance of a 2080 Ti for 60 to 70% of the cost. What is going to happen to the prices of those 2080 graphics cards? How low are the prices going to have to drop in order for people to be tempted to actually buy them when they could get a 3080 instead? Are they going to slash the price by more than 50% and start selling them for maybe, I don't know, $500? But then all people have to do is wait a month and the 3070 series will be available, which will be around $500 and still outperform the 2080s. I mean, it's just... yeah, it's a funny old time we live in. So we've seen confirmed the, at least, reference model specs of the 3080, the 3070 and the 3090. With the 3080 being the sort of the flagship model, the 3070 being the budget model, and the 3090 being the 3000 series equivalent of the RTX Titan, except, you know, way better. But I recently heard rumours about the 3060, which is going to be the extreme budget end version of the 3000 series, which apparently, if the rumours are true, is going to give you the performance of a 2080 at the price of a 2060. So if anybody can't get rid of their stock of 2080s in the next month or so, they're going to have to reduce them in price to below the price point of the 2060 series of graphics cards, or just give them away. Yeah. The irony of all this is not lost on me, of course, because yes, I realise I have just bought a PC that has a 2080 Super GPU in it. But I needed a PC now, not a month from now. But don't worry, the existing graphics card in this machine is going to go to a new home as soon as the 3080 series is available, or as soon as I'm able to get my hands on a 3080, which isn't necessarily going to be when they're released, because they're going to be selling like hotcakes. The old PC in its entirety has gone to Rita, so she's now running a PC with a GTX 1080 Ti in it. Her old PC has gone to our friend Eddie. I'm not entirely sure what he was running. He was able to install Red Dead Redemption 2, but he wasn't able to play it. So now he's going to be able to play RDR2 again. And the PC that he was using is going to one of his friends who just doesn't have a PC at all. Then I'm going to get myself a 3080. Not that I actually really need it. In fact, the only piece of software that I run on a regular basis that would probably really benefit from a 3080 graphics card is Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. Everything else works just fine on the 2080. In fact, everything else worked just fine on the 1080 Ti. But everything else in this PC is basically future-proof for probably the next 5 years. So I want to get a future-proof graphics card on there as well. Then I don't have to spend anything on PC hardware for at least the next 5 years. Fingers crossed. So I'll take the 2080 Super out of this thing. That will go to Rita. And then I'll take the 1080 Ti out of Rita's PC, which was my old PC, and I'll take that around to Eddie's and put that in for him. So everyone's a winner. I've got a PC upgrade, Rita's got a PC upgrade, our friend Eddie has a PC upgrade, and the only one who had to put their hand in their pocket was me. Totally worth it though. Oh, hang on a minute. Didn't AMD just announce their Zen 3 next generation CPU? Oh. You see? This is the thing. Everybody said, Jingles, don't be stupid. Don't... Yes, even Akazuki was saying this. Don't buy a new PC now. Just wait 2 months and get one with the 3000 series graphics card. And if I took that advice and waited and ordered a new PC next week, now you'd all be saying, Jingles, don't be stupid. Just wait a few months and get one with a Zen 3 processor. There's never a good time to buy a new PC. There's always something better just around the corner. The good thing about all... Well, actually, there's more than one good thing. The first good thing about all this is that I have a good new PC now. And also, because I'm using it for producing video, and my job is putting video on YouTube, I can write the cost of everything off as a business expense and pay less tax at the end of the year. So in real terms, I've actually got this new PC for anything up to 40% off the price that I actually paid for it. So that's 3 good things. I mean, look at this. Microsoft Flight Sim 2020, flying over Sydney in Australia. I mean, damn. That is impressive. Couldn't have done this on a 1080 Ti. And even this PC still struggles when I fly over something with seriously large amounts of geometry, like, for example, Manhattan. Oh, actually, I just thought of another good thing. I don't need to get a PlayStation 5 now. Especially since, as I mentioned in Mingles with Jingles a week or 2 ago, Sony have given up on making all of their flagship games titles exclusive to the PlayStation 4. They did that in an attempt to try to compete with the PC, to try to convince PC gamers to switch to the PlayStation, or at least to also get a PlayStation. And yep, I fell for that one as well. But they're not doing that anymore because it basically didn't work. They didn't manage to entice anything like the number of PC gamers over to the PlayStation 4 that they wanted, so they've decided, well, screw it. There's more money to be made in porting our PlayStation titles to the PC than keeping them PlayStation exclusives. Which of course is great news for PC gamers, because there's some seriously good games available on PlayStation, and that probably isn't going to change anytime soon. The only thing that's going to change is that we won't have to play them on PlayStation. We just might have to wait a little, but they are not going to be exclusive to the PlayStation. We're going to be getting them on PC too. Let's just hope they do a slightly better job of porting them over than they did with Horizon Zero Dawn, which was an absolute bloody travesty. It's an amazing game on PlayStation 4, and once they've sorted all the bugs out, I'm sure it's also going to be an amazing game on PC. Anyway, that's more or less it for today. I just need to finish off by giving a quick shout out to Jason, Sarah and Becca from the USA. In particular, Becca, their daughter. She's only 7 years old, and apparently the whole family like to sit down together and watch my videos on YouTube. Every now and then I get messages like this, and every now and then I get really guilty whenever I swear in one of my videos. I'm really sorry. I'll try to do better. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.